Let's talk about improving your fantasy team through the waiver wire heading into week number 11. I am grateful to tell you today that there is a running back worth picking up. I know a lot of people have been waiting on that. But before we get into my top 10, let's start with ads for smaller leagues. In case these guys are out there, if you're in a smaller format, these are the names that you should prioritize. For example, as we know, Tyrone Tracy, the RB1 for New York, Chase Brown, the RB1 for Cincinnati. Bucky Irving is a startable, flexible RB2 flex name for Tampa Bay Bucks every week. K. Dotton is a must-start tight end every week. Jaylen Warren, with Najee Harris coming in and out of games now, they're splitting opportunities. Juwan Jennings is the lead wide receiver, at least in targets, last week. And Cedric Tillman, as we know, one of the best wide receivers in fantasy, at least in the last 3 games he's played. All right, my top 10 this week. 1A, I will say, my 1A. If you need a running back, this is who you go for. Audric Estime. We've been waiting. We've been waiting for like 5 weeks, I feel, for a running back that is widely available in fantasy football to show some signs of life. And that is Audric Estime, who's available in over 90% of formats everywhere in fantasy football. Now, if you guys had been watching our stash videos over the course of the season, you would have heard of this name plenty of times. We have been stashing him in a lot of leagues, and here is the breakout we've been waiting for rookie Audric Estime. He led running backs for the Denver Broncos in snap share with 46%. He led the team in carries. More importantly, he had 82% of the carries for the running backs this week. Remember, 14 carries for Audric Estime this week. Javonte Williams had 1 carry. Javonte Williams had 3 total touches. Jaleel McLaughlin had 2 carries. But again, the only running back with over 2 carries was Audric Estime with 14. And his role is extremely appealing moving forward. You can see the snap share. Again, what did we say earlier? Only 46% of the snaps. But you can see he led the way with running backs. 26 was the highest of any running back. The early down work is completely his. The short yardage work is completely his. He even had 2 snaps on 3rd down, which was surprising because he is not a pass catching specialist. And he turned those 14 carries into 53 yards, almost 4 yards per clip. So the reality is right now, he's not going to have a lot of volume through the air, and that might be concerning, but in half PPR or in standard formats, he might have some opportunities. And keep in mind, he's still a rookie. They're going to get him more and more involved over the course of the season. Career high in attempts and yards. And at this point of the season, it's almost impossible to find a decent running back in competitive leagues for the waiver wire. So I'm willing to spend about 15, to 20% of my fab on a name like Audric Estime. All right. 1B. Now, if you need a wide receiver, I would prioritize this name. That is Ricky Pearsall. And look, the reality is Ricky Pearsall is probably rostered in most competitive formats. In all of my leagues, at least, he is already rostered. But you can see this last week, even with Juwan Jennings back into the lineup, he was 3rd amongst wide receivers in snaps with 64% of the snaps, and routes run with 71% route participation. And in target share, he had just under an 18% target share. And since he came back from that gun wound, if you remember, that kind of slowed up his rookie year. But we have week 8 over 11 fantasy points, and then week 10, 17 fantasy points. He had 6 targets, career high. He had 4 receptions, ties his career high, 73 yards, another career high, and he gets the receiving touchdown. This is a guy that you could potentially flex week in, week out. I'm willing to spend about 15 to 25% of my fab to guarantee him on my roster. All right, at number 3. If you miss out on slick Ricky Pearsall, how about picking up Adonai Mitchell? Michael Pittman has been dealing with a lot of injuries in 2024. I mean, you can see week 3, 6, 7, 10, pretty much every single week he has been on the injury report. He's been dealing with the back injury the entire year. They've kind of been toying with putting him on IR or not. He's had a hand injury, finger injury, lower leg, lower body injury, which this has led to a larger role for Adonai Mitchell specifically this week because we didn't have any Michael Pittman. He was out this week. And Adonai Mitchell led the wide receiver room in snap share, 94%, route participation, 95%, and he also saw a 17% target share. With those opportunities, he turned them into 6 catches, 71 yards, 13 plus PPR points, career highs across the board in receptions, receiving yards, and fantasy points. Very talented player out of Texas. He just needed an opportunity to shine. So we're willing to spend about, anywhere about 5 to 10% of our fab. We're not going to go crazy because if Pittman is back, he's probably not a startable name. At number 4, how about Pop Douglas, a name that we've talked about a lot. And look, if you're out there in deeper formats and you just need someone that you can put in your flex, he's not going to cost you your week. He has some upside and he has a safe floor. That is what Pop Douglas is, right? Reliable flex in deeper formats. Since Drake May got some playtime for this Patriots team, he has had 3 games with 9 or more targets. In 3 out of 6 games, he's had 10 or more PPR points. So again, if you need that reliable flex on your team, just to kind of give you a safety valve, I'm willing to spend about 5 to 10% of my fab. All right, at number 5, if you miss out on Audric Estimate, Gus Edwards is a sneaky ad as well. Available in about 80% of formats across the board. Okay, so Kamani Vidal was a healthy scratch today, and there was a belief amongst the community, and even I felt this way, that potentially Kamani Vidal could steal the RB2 role for this team. But today, that was a clear indication of the complete opposite, because Kamani Vidal, again, was a healthy scratch, did not play. And you can see Gus Edwards had a very important role for this team. He had 14 snaps compared to 38 for J.K. Dobbins, but he was a clear RB2. He took 12 snaps on early downs. He had a goal line opportunity, and he had 55 yards on 10 carries, 5.5 yards per carry. Very efficient, which is not what we've been used to seeing from him this year, but he's back from that ankle injury. He's healthy. He might have a larger role as the season goes on. He has a role on the goal line. I mean, that could be really appealing if you're in a desperate position. But again, we're not going to go crazy. I'm willing to spend about 1 to 5% of my fab. At number 6, let's talk about MVS. Now with the New Orleans Saints. Look, I really keep going back and forth on MVS, to be honest with you guys. Let's play bad cop first. Okay, bad cop is he had 3 targets this week. He had 3 targets. All right. More bad cop. Well, he's a historically inconsistent player. We'll go off one week and we'll bust the next week. More bad cop. He's on a terrible team, the New Orleans Saints, connected to a quarterback that is widely inconsistent, Derek Carr. Okay, we played bad cop. Let's play good cop. Well, he had 2 touchdowns today. He had over 90 yards. He had over 28 PPR points. And he had a 15% target share on this team, a team that has no receiver worth noting, by the way. I mean, Mason Tipton was this young rookie that was exciting to think about. He didn't even get a freaking target. I mean, they're targeting their tight ends more than their wide receivers right now. Look, I find it difficult to rely on him. If anybody's out there telling you to spend a lot of fab on him, I think this could be fool's gold. But if you can pick him up like for free, then I think it's worth seeing what he can be on a consistent basis. At number 7, let's talk about Jalen Coker. All right, Jalen Coker didn't have a huge day for fantasy football purposes, but there is a reason for optimism, right? If you look at snaps, he was second in snaps amongst wide receivers. He was second in routes run. He ran 26 out of 28 possible routes. That's incredible to see. And he also led the team in targets, the entire team, wide receivers, running backs, tight ends. He led everybody in targets with 8, a 32% target share, kind of similar to MVS. If you can pick him up for free, 1 to 5% of your fab, I think it's worth doing. The unfortunate reality is Andy Dalton's not going to start probably. I mean, they want to see what they have in Bryce Young, and that means we might have some inconsistent weeks at the quarterback position. All right, at number 8, this guy is only worth picking up if reports about Aaron Jones come out to be more serious. That is Cam Akers. And at the time, it doesn't look serious. Like Aaron Jones, if you remember, he did leave the game this week with a rib injury. He was carted to the locker room. But then according to Rotoballer NFL, the x-rays are negative on Aaron Jones and his rib area. He did actually come back into the game, so he should be fine. So if you're watching this and reports haven't changed, then don't pick him up. But if he does miss time, Cam Akers is the clear RB2 on this team. An offense that, despite what we saw this week, is typically pretty good at moving the ball down the field. But again, we're not spending any fab on him. At tight ends, how about Mike Gesicki or Dawson Knox? Now, with Dawson Knox, Dalton Kincaid did lead this game with an injury. And after the game, he was in the locker room and people were asking about the injury. And basically he said, I thought I could go out there in the game and keep moving, but I just couldn't. My body wouldn't let me.
Thought I could go and just didn't feel good enough to run, be able to go out there and protect myself.
That tells me that Dawson Knox could miss multiple weeks. And the problem with Dalton Kincaid has always been there's 2 tight ends that they target. If there's no Dalton Kincaid, Dawson Knox becomes a potential flexible name at the tight end position. And then as far as Mike Gesicki goes, without T. Higgins. If T. Higgins doesn't play again this week, you can flex or start Mike Gesicki as a high upside, low floor type of tight end option. Okay, let's talk about defensive streamers to end today's video. The Vikings at the Titans, one of my favorite plays this week. The Titans are the second best matchup for your defense. Dolphins versus Raiders. The Raiders are the third best matchup for your defense. The Rams at the Patriots, another pretty decent matchup. And then you've got the Packers and versus the Bears as well. Another great matchup. I mean, right now that offense is so stagnant. They're not moving the ball. Caleb Williams looks a bit lost. It's not a surprise to me. Shane Waldron is not my favorite coach in the NFL. But those are some options to pick up if you need to stream the position. In fact, you can probably go pick up the Packers right now. I did that in the Flock League because they're on a bye week. So you can go pick them up right now. If there was some guy you were stashing and they didn't do anything, go pick up the Packers right now, right? That could be the best option, and you could beat everybody to the waiver wire this week. I appreciate you watching the video. Do me a favor, hit that like button to show some love. Subscribe if you like the content. And the last thing I'll say is if you have a question that you want to ask us, a start, sit, a trade question, whatever the case may be, check out the pinned comment. You can go to our website and ask us a question at any time. And also, if you don't have a free account yet on Flock Fantasy, definitely go sign up for one. When you use our promo code LAND, L-A-N-D at sign up, you will get the team analyzer, the trade calculator, and the expert consensus rankings all for free. As a thank you, when you use the code LAND, flockfantasy.com/land. I appreciate y'all for being here. Let's go improve our teams. Now that those idiots are done talking, who needs some rankings?
Hell yeah, I need some rankings.
Then use promo code LAND, L-A-N-D, for 30% off any membership at flockfantasy.com.
Oh.